The tragic true crime story of 12-year-old Cristian Fernandez, the murder of his 2-year-old brother. This is the tragic and haunting true crime story of 12-year-old Cristian Fernandez, a young boy whose life spiraled into darkness, leading him to commit a crime so shocking that it left the world in disbelief. Cristian, who had experienced unimaginable hardship at such a young age, was accused of murdering his 2-year-old half-brother, David, in 2011. This case not only gripped the public's attention, but also raised important questions about childhood trauma, abuse, and how the justice system should treat minors involved in heinous crimes. Cristian's early years were filled with pain and instability. Born into a broken family, he grew up in an environment plagued by abuse, neglect, and emotional turmoil. His mother, a woman struggling with her own troubled past, was unable to provide a safe and nurturing home for her children. Cristian's father was largely absent from his life, and there were allegations that he had been abusive as well. From a young age, Cristian witnessed and endured violence and neglect, which would later contribute to his tragic actions. At the time of the murder, Cristian was only 12 years old. His half-brother David was just 2. On the night of the incident, David was found severely injured, his body battered with signs of blunt force trauma. Cristian initially claimed that David had fallen off a bed, but the injuries didn't match this explanation. Medical professionals later discovered that David had suffered extensive head trauma, with signs of abuse that indicated the injuries were not a one-time event, but rather the result of prolonged abuse. The discovery of the abuse led investigators to dig deeper into the family's history. It quickly became clear that Cristian had been a victim of neglect and physical abuse for much of his life. He had endured emotional and physical pain from a very young age, and many experts later suggested that these experiences had a profound impact on his emotional development. The question that emerged was whether Cristian was truly capable of understanding the gravity of his actions, or if his violent behavior was the result of a lifetime of trauma. As the investigation unfolded, it became apparent that Cristian's relationship with his mother was deeply dysfunctional. She had a history of making poor decisions, and there were allegations of substance abuse, neglect, and violent behavior in the household. Cristian's family was riddled with dysfunction, and he often had to care for his younger siblings. Despite his own struggles, he felt responsible for looking after them, but without the emotional tools or guidance to do so in a healthy way. During the trial, defense attorneys argued that Cristian was a product of his circumstances, a deeply troubled boy who had been exposed to violence and abuse throughout his early years. They claimed that his actions were not premeditated, but rather the result of emotional distress, confusion, and a lack of understanding. At just 12 years old, Cristian was still a child, but one who had already been subjected to an overwhelming amount of trauma. However, prosecutors argued that Cristian's actions were deliberate, and that he should be held accountable for the murder of his young brother. The case sparked a national debate about juvenile justice. Should a 12-year-old be tried as an adult for such a crime, or should they be treated as a victim of their circumstances? In many ways, the case highlighted the growing tension between protecting children and ensuring justice for the victims of violent crimes. In the end, the court found Cristian guilty of manslaughter and aggravated child abuse, not first-degree murder as originally charged. Cristian's sentence was controversial, with some believing he deserved a second chance due to his age and the abuse he had suffered, while others felt that he should have been held fully accountable for his actions. Cristian Fernandez's case was a tragic reflection of the devastating impact of childhood abuse and neglect. It was a story of a boy who was shaped by pain, violence, and confusion. A boy who became a victim of his circumstances, yet was also responsible for a heinous crime. The case raised critical questions about the justice system, childhood trauma, and the fine line between accountability and compassion for minors who commit violent acts. Since the trial, Cristian's story has served as a cautionary tale for society about the importance of addressing childhood abuse early, offering support to at-risk families, and providing resources to children who are exposed to violence. Cristian's life, like David's, was forever altered by the events that unfolded on that fateful night in 2011. It serves as a heartbreaking reminder that sometimes the most innocent among us are victims of circumstances